Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Moment Mastermind. We are delighted to have you here for our weekly Friday Job Seeker Pick Me Up. My name is Shira Lotzar, and I am a higher purpose champion. I am an association recruiter, and I'm also a career coach, and love to help job seekers to really spruce up their brand, to connect with hiring managers and resumes and LinkedIn and networking and all kinds of great stuff. I'm also the co-founder and volunteer of boomerworks.org, and we are a charitable organization helping professionals age 50 plus to re-career into self-employment. We offer free educational programs. Feel free to check us out at boomerworks.org. So today, our experts, actually Corliss Jackson normally is with us. We have her colleague, Wendy Thompson, an expert in federal government resumes. We have Kiki L'Italien, who is our social media guru. We have Vern Schellinger, who's all about relationship and networking. And we have Joe Weech, who is government contractor and recruiter extraordinaire. So welcome, welcome all. All right, so today our normal format is we're going to start with a 10-minute breakout session. And in that breakout, you're going to identify your group's top questions. So make sure to assign a scribe who can capture the questions and then post the questions when you're back in the main room. Don't post them in your breakout. Make sure to post them back when we're back in the main session. During that little breakout, feel free to share best practices from your search and do make sure that everybody has equal time to share. When we come back in the main room, we will have a group discussion. Please remain muted when you're in the main room. Post your questions in the chat so that the experts have time to answer your questions. And if you have any unanswered questions by the end, feel free to email them to me directly. At 10:05, we're going to have a 10-minute speed networking session. So for those of you who've been on our calls for a while, today is the day that we go back to our small groups again, where you're going to be sharing your career goals and so forth. Next week, we'll go back to the Hollywood Squares where everybody gets 10 seconds to share their story. But today, you'll be back in a small group sharing your career aspirations. We have a few links for you here to keep in touch with our Power Networking spreadsheet. It's a Google Doc, and we will put that in the chat in just a minute. The recording of the Q&A will be here on my website, and then we have a job search resources page with tips and tricks and books and articles and things. And if you have anything that you'd like to share with us, feel free, and I'll get that on my website. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our 10-minute breakout. So give me just a moment here. All right, and so go ahead and hit your blue join button, and we will see you in about 10 minutes. Hey, Kelly, we're in breakouts. I just gave you a room.
Kira?
Yes, ma'am.
Still there because I forgot to wait, and Vern was in the room that I just popped into.
Oh, sure, that's fine. Yeah, we're not being super strict anymore about that, but yeah, I will move you to, let's see here, room 3. There you go.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And for those watching this recording, feel free to fast forward about 8.5 minutes and we'll join you back here in the discussion. Hey, Jeffrey, we are in breakout rooms, so I'm going to put you in one now. Hey, Noreen, we are just finishing up breakouts. So people are going to be back in just a minute.
Shira?
Mm-hmm.
It's Noreen.
Yes, I know. I see you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry I'm late.
No, that's okay. We are, people are coming back for breakouts in just a minute.
Okay.
Just
great.
hang here with us. Thanks. All right. Hope you guys had a good little networking spurt there. Glad to have you back here in the main room, and we are going to go ahead and get into our chat. So go ahead and if you were the scribe for your group, start to put your questions here in the chat box. And hopefully we are going to have I'll call her a returning guest, Kimberly Connolly, who's been a longtime member of our Higher Moment Mastermind. She actually got a job, which is why she hasn't been with us for a couple of weeks, but I asked her to come back for a little cameo appearance for a couple of reasons, to share a little bit of her journey. But also she has a few things that she wanted to share in terms of a job fair that's going on and a couple of openings. So hopefully she'll be with us soon. If I don't see her in the next 5-10 minutes, I'll go ahead and post on her behalf some of the things that she shared with me privately, but I'm really excited for her. So in the meanwhile, let's go ahead. Oh, before we start the chat box. So Joe Weech, one of our experts, and I were talking right before the meeting. And as you might have seen, Joe is a recruiter in the government contracting space. She's been a recruiting executive for many, many years. And here in this call, we are often discussing the sort of the competing interests, right, between job seekers and employers, right? You have all kinds of needs, and you're looking for your career goals to be met, and you're also looking for recruiters to respond to you in a timely way, and often that does not happen, and there's a reason for that. These are very, very, very busy recruiters who have all kinds of priorities, and when Joe and I were talking earlier, this morning, she was sharing with me a little bit of a day in her life, which is a pretty intense situation right now, which is very normal actually for recruiters. And I wanted Joe to just give just a little kind of a minute or two, high level look in her world, so you can kind of get an appreciation for what's going on with recruiters and what the pressures that they're dealing with as you guys are trying to find each other. So Joe, do you want to share a little bit?
Okay, and I'll probably share, like, not as a spokesperson for just myself, but my industry colleagues, because I network with them all day, every day. And the main things that I believe everyone is having struggles with right now is that a lot of recruiting teams have been reduced, sometimes in half. Sometimes there were teams of 5, they're down to 1. So one person is doing the job of at least maybe 2.5 people in their companies. And so there's not a lot of time to be able to read resumes. There's not a lot of time to be able to, have conversations with people that are not qualified, for the job or whatever. So I just want to make sure everybody's expectations are lowered. But also there are salary requirements that are coming way down. And I think that if you were making $150,000 in your last job, chances are that job is now being vetted at $135,000, and people can't seem to adjust their salary expectations by that big of a gap. I even know that for my own job, I had to take a salary there was a disparity between my former salary and this salary, simply from the standpoint that things have changed during the pandemic. So I highly recommend that you set your expectations, and when they come at you, they're not insulting you. I have somebody with, phenomenal qualifications, and she fits every single thing we need. In her current job, she's at 165, and this one, the top that we can pay is 105. So there's going to be, that sort of a thing. So I would just say, set your expectations, and realize that, we are going to do our best to vet you, but sometimes it's a good idea to even have that conversation before going forward. Just say, I'm really excited, about being, considered for this role. It seems like all of the requirements match, my skills and ability. My current target is X number of dollars, is that within the range of what you're vetting? And if it's like totally out of the ballpark, then you can save yourself and the recruiter a lot of time. So I know people say, don't talk about money, but I'm saying, let's just not waste each other's time. And that's, because we need to kind of get that taken care of at the beginning.
Thank you, Joe. And actually, just to put a finer point on the last comment that you made about it's not really couth to ask about money, you can, but notice how Joe framed it. I want to be really intentional about this. Here's what Joe did not just say. She did not just say, hey, Mr. or Miss Recruiter, what are you offering for this role? What is your rate? She did not say that. She proffered information about herself. That's okay. If you want to share with an employer and say, look, this is the salary that the compensation that I'm looking for, that's fine, so that the employer can make a better decision about whether or not I'm a fit. But it's still not couth to say, what are you asking? Now, all of that said, we have talked in the past about the fact that there are pay equity laws now where employers are really not supposed to be asking you about what your salary history has been.
No, but the salary target is different.
Exactly. So they're not supposed to be asking you what your salary history has been. They can ask you your salary target. There are some recruiters that are actually stepping back from that too, and actually proactively sharing what the range is. There's a lot of shifting right now in the recruiting realm. So just be kind of aware of that. Laura?
Why don't they just post what they're offering then?
Right. So this is the tricky part. In general, the rule of thumb has been from the employer side. Okay, if they post the number or they post a range, then that limits their negotiation ability. Right. So and by the way, this is changing. I'm telling you about what past mindset has been. If the employer posts a range, then psychologically, most candidates will envision themselves at the top end of the range. And if they're not qualified for that and they get lower, then the candidate feels lowballed. Okay, so it's the psychology of it. Number two, if you only post one number, then the employer feels, well, what if we have to go a little under, a little over, and that's a little tricky. So the common wisdom has been in the past, don't mention salary. Just ask the candidate. In past cases, it was, what were you making? Now it's more of, what are you looking for? However, that is starting to shift. And in fact, it's even shifting on my own desk. I have been working with my own clients as a recruiter and saying, look, this is the situation. We have this pay equity going on. We, the employer side, right, we need to be more transparent. And yeah, we're taking a risk. Yes, we just are. And so my recommendation personally is for employers to post the one number, but a number that is really solid, a number that they will not go below. They could go above, but they won't go below. But that takes some negotiation on the front end between the recruiter and the hiring manager, or whoever's dealing with compensation, to make sure that it's a kind of a real kind of a fair and realistic expectation. So it's a delicate dance, but it's only changing sort of now because of the pay equity laws that are coming in place. Okay. All right. So
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Kiki, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So the first question we have is about personal references. What are your thoughts about including a personal reference when asked? Who would you include and why?
Yeah, I knew this question was coming. The person had actually shared this with me earlier on. And, you know, it's unusual for an employer to ask for a personal reference. You know, it's tricky, right? Because you want to be careful in who you give and how. If it were me, I would provide somebody who is personal. It could even be a friend, but I'd also maybe even say like a peer or even a colleague, maybe somebody I volunteer with. You know, somebody who knows me both personally and professionally, who's not my family member, right? Not my best friend, that kind of thing, but who can really speak to my character, speak to what it's like even to work with me. That would be my personal recommendation, but it's a very unusual question. That's why I think the question was asked. But experts, do you, Vern, Joe?
Well, I'd want to clarify thoughts about including a personal reference. In other words, including a personal reference when they ask for your references,
Yeah,
or
when they ask for it. Yeah.
Or when they ask for it.
When the employer, if the employer happens to say, please provide us a personal reference, who do you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to what Shira just said.
It's a little unusual, but I keep it quasi-professional.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, collegial, maybe that would be a good way to think.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Kiki, next question.
All right. So how can we best prepare for behavioral interviews?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just to explain what a behavioral interview is. So the idea of behavioral interviews, which are different than what's called situational interviews, behavioral interviews vet your past experience, but what they do is the questions are designed to get you to talk about accomplishment stories in a way that speaks to your behavioral skills. So what'll happen is the employer will say something to the effect of, describe a time when you, tell me about a time when you, and then ... And the rest of that question is going to have some sort of behavioral competency. Some people call it a soft skill, baked into the question. So it might sound something like, describe a time when you used your critical thinking skills to resolve a crisis situation, something like that. So they're asking a behavioral question that's tucked into the accomplishment. So your job is to respond in the formula that some of us call SAR, situation, action, result. Now there are different formulas. They're all the same thing. You'll hear SAR, you'll hear STAR, situation, task, action, results, and we call them STAR stories. Some people say PAR, problem, action, result. The one I happen to like is CAB, like a taxi cab, challenge, action, benefit. It's all the same thing. It's a story. So when you're sharing your response, you're putting it in that formula. So challenge, action, benefit, I like that because what it talks about is, it says, you're describing what was the challenge that the organization was facing at the time. What were the actions that you took to resolve the challenge? And what were the benefits to the organization as a result of your work? Preferably, there are some metrics in there, percentages, money saved, lot, whatever. But if not, that's okay. There still should be some sort of forward movement. But what's really important is that you think about these questions in advance, and not for nothing. This is actually a wonderful way to do your resume, right? Knowing your SAR stories, your CAB stories, is a great way to frame the accomplishment stories in your resume. It's the same, right? Same concept. It's just that in a resume, it's a little bullet, whereas in the CAB story, it's a fuller description. And so what you're trying to do there in that story is you're not only talking about that past accomplishment, you're trying to think about the behavioral, if you will, superpowers that you used when you were engaging in that story. And we all have lots of them, right? Tons of them. And what you want to do is, depending upon what the question is asked, you want to have enough of those behavioral skills at the ready. So think about it, like who were you being during that story? So as you're writing your story out, it's a standard story, but you were exhibiting certain kinds of behavioral traits: the critical thinking, conflict resolution, team building, whatever the behavioral skills are that you feel like you were exhibiting, so that when the employer asks that question, you have enough arrows in your quiver, if you will, to pull one out, right? Because you already know your story and you already know who you're being. You should be able to speak to it pretty directly. Okay. So I'm going to press pause here. I noticed that Kimberly Connolly just joined us. Kimberly, do you want to go live with us? First of all, congratulations on your new job.
Oh, thanks. Thanks so
Yay.
much. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay.
So go ahead, if you wouldn't mind, share with us just a quick little high level about your journey, so folks can feel encouraged by their own job search journey. And then if you want to share the couple of resources with us, that would be great. I have them ready to post in the chat as well.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So, Rick Webb had suggested joining in this group, which was such a blessing, because I really needed to hear so much of what the group shared. So thank you so much for that. My background's in marketing, but I decided to kind of widen the aperture. And I ran across this training program. I've been out of corporate work for 20 years. I've had my own business, but it's different, getting back into the corporate world. So I did this training program. And actually what I had shared with Sherry yesterday is that they're hosting another starting May 10th. It's 2 weeks. And it's a veteran recruiting training program. So it's for veterans, military spouses, and then descendants of veterans. My dad's a Marine, so I qualified. But, if that's interesting, to any of you, especially, if you have a recruiting background, but even if you don't, I do not have any recruiting background, but I would tell you the training is incredible. Part of my consternation going back to corporate work was the technology, like, wow, am I going to be so far behind? But as it turned out, it comes back like this. And then they train you on, hey, if you're going to use this ATS, or, we use this zip whip to send these mass texts or whatever. And they have incredible training and really friendly, kind, like, I can't tell you how great the corporate culture is. It's great. Anyway, so that was one. There's this veteran training class coming up, a little short, it's May 10th, so it's around the corner. If you have interest, I just saw that it was posted here. Go ahead. You can, reach out to me if you want. And I had given Shira my contact information. I can put it in the chat below as well. And then the other opportunity is I'm actually sourcing for my clients Accenture. And so we have positions that are in particularly, I'm looking for DevOps, people with Ansible, Puppet, Chef, Docker, those kinds of backgrounds, Linux, Windows. And you know what? I'm not technical. I know an inch deep, but I know enough to talk to candidates about whether they have the skills that Accenture's looking for. By the way, these positions are currently remote, but they will eventually be in this amazing technology center in St. Louis. And I know or San Antonio. And I know there are people on the call from outside the area. So it could be up to a year that we're still remote, but at some point you're going to want to move to this. And the cost of living is far better there than it is here in the DC area. Anyway, the other positions are like Java, front end, back end, full stack, JRules, Ruby on Rails. So again, I can share that with you, but I just wanted to come back and, share some of that in case it was, touched anyone.
Thank you, Kimberly. This is wonderful. Congratulations again on your new job. Thank you. I know you took a few minutes out of your busy day to come back and share with us. So you're welcome to stay on, or I know you might have to get back to work, but thank you for taking
I have a screening call at 10 o'clock, so I do need to jump off, but I definitely wanted to put my information in the chat so that if anybody wants to contact me directly, and I think that the information I sent you had some contact information too, but love to talk to anyone who this could be helpful for. So thank you so much, Ed, for everything.
You're
really
welcome. Congratulations. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, so Kiki, would you like to get us into the next chat?
Absolutely. So our next question has to do with inappropriate or potentially illegal questions. What's the best way to respond to a question that might be inappropriate or possibly illegal?
Yeah, that's great. Well, first of all, you have to know what those questions are. And that has to do with anything that falls under what's called a protected class by the EEOC, what's called Title VII. Age, race, creed, color, sex, gender, national origin. There's a whole slew of protected classes there. And frankly, you have to first, before we even address the question, you want to have a little grace with the employer first emotionally. Okay. A lot of people don't even know that they're tripping over an illegal or a protected class kind of a question. Because if they did, they wouldn't ask it. Okay. They just wouldn't. And typically that's going to come from a hiring manager rather than rather than a recruiter or an HR person who typically know the laws. But they could be asking things like, when did you graduate high school? Or, how close are you to retirement? Or do you have a family or children or those kinds of things? Anything that, it could have to do with a medical situation, right? So all of those things are off limits, and yet some employers just don't know that they shouldn't be asking those kinds of questions. There are some delicate ways to overcome them depending upon what the specific question is. You can just sort of pivot, right? So if you're asked a question that is, you don't feel comfortable with, say, thank you for that question. Here's actually how I'd like to respond to that. In other words, you kind of pivot them. So for example, if somebody says, well, how long do you have left to, to work, or are you close to retirement, something like that, you might say, well, thanks for that question. I'm a really, really committed, hardworking individual. And I am, I'm just so ready to really fully put myself into this job for, in an extended period of time. In other words, you don't answer the question, you kind of address what they're really asking, which is how long are you going to be committed, right, to this kind of a thing. So try to listen quickly for what's underneath the question. Why are they asking? Oftentimes it has to do with commitment. I've heard people ask questions about, oh, well, your children and daycare and this and that. I am fully, I'm able to give my full time and attention to this job, and you kind of go after it a little bit more that way. Joe, I know you've had a lot of experience with this. Do you want to give a quick response?
My favorite answer to anything that, is deemed to be in a protected class sort of situation is, will you be making a hiring decision based on my answer to this question?
Yeah, it's a good one.
And then that puts them in this position of, then they're having to think about what did they just ask, right? And so I think that the shift goes back on them. And then I would kick into just addressing what you think that is behind the question.
Yeah, that's great. Vern, any other thoughts?
No, I think those are all good ones. Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
All right. Jean, did you have a quick question?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I was wondering whether what you just said is also applicable to religious organization. And the reason why I'm asking is that recently, yesterday, I came across an opportunity where in the application process, they went as far as asking the name of the church, the name of the pastor, how you were raised. I mean,
yeah. So here's the situation with that, and religious organizations fall. Okay. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of jargon. Okay. So in the recruiting world and in HR, there's something called, this will sound funny, a BFOQ. It stands for a Bona Fide Occupational Qualification. So there are certain organizations that fall under this BFOQ status where they actually are allowed to ask you personal information that relates to their organization. The classic example of a BFOQ is if you have you're hiring somebody to staff the men's locker room in a sports team. All right, you can require that it be a male who applies. You can, right, as opposed to females. So the same thing, it's the same situation. If it's a religious organization, and they are, and it's a BFOQ for them to require somebody to be of their religious persuasion, they're allowed to do that. And it's a case-by-case situation. So if they're asking that, that's likely what's going on. Vern or Joe, did you have any other HR lens on that?
No, same
You
thing.
answered that perfectly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, all right, Kiki, next question.
All right. So our next question is about government relations, but it can be broadened out more generally. If you meet the vast majority of requirements, but don't have any work experience on a couple of the supposedly required issues, do you address that head on in your cover letter by acknowledging it, but also noting that you've previously been at jobs where you hadn't previously worked on those key issues and you succeeded?
Yeah.
Or does that just unnecessarily draw attention to a negative and you should just stay focused on everything you do offer?
Yeah, that's a great question. A balance, right? There's no exact answer for sure. I would err on the side of overcoming the objection first, simply because there's such competition with these jobs these days that if you don't have it and the employer suspects that you don't have it, you could be inadvertently eliminating yourself from consideration because they're going to go to somebody who overtly does have it, right? So look, it's going to come out anyway, right? One way or the other, it's going to come out. So to me, I would address it up front and be intentional. First of all, that shows that you read the job announcement. You're being a critical thinker and you're being thoughtful in how you're applying. I would simply, yes, I would address it in the cover letter. And by the way, if you've ever even been exposed to the issue or the skill set in this case, or whatever the situation is that they're looking for, that's okay to say that too, even if it's mild familiarity. And by the way, even if you haven't had professional experience, but you've done your research, even just on your own, you've studied the issue, you've talked with individuals, you've sussed it out, you've learned. You can mention that in the cover letter. Well, I haven't had direct experience. I have been researching, and my understanding is the nature of these issues is right? And show that you're at least coming forward. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, for as much as employers are trying to mitigate their risk, for as much as they're looking for people who've been there, done that, have 5 t-shirts and the side of coleslaw, you're going to have a learning curve anyway. You're always going to have a learning curve. You will always have to learn their particular issues in a deeper way, always. And so to the extent that you can mitigate that hiring manager's risk by showcasing in your cover letter that you've already been doing your homework, you're already kind of jumping into the deep end of the pool, that makes them feel safer, right? And it just helps them feel like you're actually connecting to their mission, right? So Vern, Joe, any side thoughts on that?
No, you're right on today, Shira.
Yeah, I do think that when it comes to, I know it said government relations. So if it has to do like with a federal job and you're trying to do something on a contract, I will say that what Shira said, I endorse completely. But if it's one of the requirements and the company cannot bill unless you have had on the job experience for that, it's going to be a swipe left. So I think that what you do is what Shira said, you basically point to what you know about it or what your exposure or familiarity you have with that. And then if it's one of those sort of like nice to haves or whatever, or it can be negotiated out, then you'll still get the call. So I think it's a really good strategy.
Yeah. And of course, and we're also looking at a distinction between government relations as in the lobbying kinds of jobs versus government contracting. That's what Joe was just referring to, the government contracting side.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Shira, I would add, almost every employer, when they put together the job description, it's the walk on water candidate, right? Candidate, right? And
Yes.
Typically none of us are the perfect candidate. So there's always going to be something. Now, the question said supposedly one of the requirements. So, I mean, is it one of the absolute have to haves, or is it kind of the nice to have? And sometimes the posting doesn't give you that kind of information.
Right.
So it's, but if you believe it's going to be important to the job, I do exactly what Shira said.
Yeah.
So.
And by the way, a good rule of thumb, doesn't work all the time, but a good rule of thumb is, you have a better chance of knowing whether the job is required versus preferred if that requirement is in the first 3 bullets of the requirements section.
Yeah.
3 bullets, 3 to 4. Okay. Now, if it's number 10, not as much, but if it's bullet 1, 2, 3, 4, even if they say strongly preferred, even if they say, even if they don't use the term required, you can pretty much rest assured that those are the checkboxes. Why? Because that was the top of their mind when they were writing the requirements. They put the things that were most important up top and then in descending order.
Okay, we ready for the next one?
We are.
All right. So Ty had this question, there's a lot of gray area in when we start talking about what can people ask, what can they not ask. And so how about something like this? How many years have you worked in your field? Is that illegal?
No, not at all. It's not illegal whatsoever. No, that's a qualifications issue. People absolutely can screen out on years of experience. They can't screen out on your age, but they absolutely can look at years of experience. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Okay.
Simple answer.
Straight and to the point.
Straight to the point.
Well, so we've gotten through all of the questions that have come in through the chat, which I think is maybe only the second time we've ever actually done that. Usually there's more, that's coming in than we have time to get to. So here's, but Meredith just added one that might be a good one, and it's actually very timely to ask. Should you post a DE&I certificate on LinkedIn?
It's a great question. I would say in general, yes. And if you have a certification or a certificate, for sure post it, particularly if that certificate is related to your brand. Okay, now, and right now, most employers are somehow, putting a new emphasis on DE&I, diversity, equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So in general, I would say that particular one is sort of a good thing to mention if you're going for it. In fact, interestingly, I don't know if any of you have participated in this, but the University of South Florida has been offering now a free DE&I certificate for the country. And it's been, I think we're in week 5 or week 6 right now. And I'm participating. I think there's like 130,000 people in the country who are taking this thing, which is kind of amazing. And so I'll be putting it on my LinkedIn, when I get the badge. So yeah, I think that's a good thing. But if it's not DE&I, if it's something else that is not related to your skill set, to your brand, what have you, just think twice, because when people look at your LinkedIn profile, they're looking at a holistic story. Right. And so you want to make sure that things are kind of complementary, not sort of one-off, because when people see things that are one-off, it could cause a little bit of brain confusion, right? Like, oh, they got a certificate in this. I wonder why. Their whole background is here. Now, especially if it's an area that you're trying to go into, you're trying to re-career. Oh my goodness, absolutely. Please, please, please go after those badges and certificates all over the place and bolster your credibility that, no, I used to be here, but I'm moving in this direction. And now I'm proving to you how interested and committed I am to that new profession.
All right. So I actually skipped one. And so my apologies for skipping this one. It was right before all of the different attachments. So pardon me and forgive me. How do you measure your clients' efforts in their job search? Is there a particular metric you ask them to focus on?
Okay, I need a little more clarification. When you say client, can you say that again?
Yeah.
I'm wondering what client we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So I'm just, since you are also a job coach, some of you have helped people in the past.
I see.
So there's a host of things that I expect of us on this end. So I was wondering if you have particular metrics that you hone on that everybody should be focusing on, or what's your general thought or approach?
Sure. I think all of us coaches will have a different perspective. I'll give a quick one for me. Vern, feel free to give one for you because we're both coaches on this call. Sure. So one of the metrics I would use would be focus most of your time on networking and very little time on job boards. Only 10% of your job search efforts should be on the job boards. I mean, I cannot, if I could stand up here on the table and wave my arms, okay, and do a dance, I cannot emphasize this because it's just such a different world. I mean, back in the day, right? You look the envelope, we've talked about this before, right? You went to the post office and put your resume in the mail. That was then. This is now. When jobs go out there, you are competing with hundreds of other people. You get lost in the sauce just like that. Mm-hmm. And so your ability to get notice, I think we mentioned it last week, by really tapping into your network to make sure that the people who need to know you enough so that you can have access to the hidden job market is the way that most people land jobs. So number one, networking is priority. Job boards are way, way down on the list. The other thing I would recommend in terms of networking is, they used to say never eat lunch alone. I'll say never have a Zoom coffee alone. Okay, like you should be having at least one Zoom networking coffee every single day, every day, wow. Every day, at least one, preferably more, right? Because there's nothing like getting on a call with somebody and having a conversation. You never know what's going to come up there. as opposed to just kind of randomly sharing your resume with your network. People are busy. They're like, oh, great, happy to keep you in mind. Yeah, and they're on to the next thing. When you have a conversation, a 15, 20-minute, 30-minute conversation, and you're sharing not just about yourself, you're asking them about themselves. You're looking to find out what's going on in their lives. How can you be a resource to them? A real mutual exchange. You're helping each other. And then you're suddenly thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, now, gee, Jean, that you just mentioned this, I got a friend who I want to connect you with. Those spontaneous kinds of interactions lead to such rich, interactions. In fact, I'll just make a quick example in my own recruiting life. So I'm doing a search right now that is, you want to talk about a purple squirrel, man. Oh my good night. It is like blowing me up. I don't remember the last time I did a search that was this hard. Okay. Because it has so many requirements. Anyway, I've been using LinkedIn, and I'm asking people, not only, are they interested, right? But would they be willing to talk to me, have a conversation with me, for me to tap into their network, not just through LinkedIn, but like an actual phone conversation. And I just had one the other day, thank the Lord. And this woman got on the phone, and I told her about the opportunity. It wasn't right for her. But I said, Lori, who do you know in your network? And she says, oh my gosh, Sharon, now that you're describing it to me, I got the perfect person. And this afternoon, I'm vetting her. Okay. I mean, I was like, yes, thank you, because it happened organically in a discussion, not just through a quick outreach. Okay. So the extent to which you can get people on the phone and have that spontaneity, nothing like it. And Vern, I know you're not only a coach, but a networking expert. Any other thoughts on this?
Sure. So Jean asked about goals, metrics. Just to emphasize what Shira's saying, make a goal for yourself every day. Reach out to 10 people, whether that's literally a phone call or simply an email or an invitation to get together, so that you're constantly making sure that your efforts at networking are continuous.
Yes.
The other thing, that as you go through the job search, you typically find a group of people who are really, helping you and being an advocate and doing everything they can to help you. Don't let those people, stay in touch with them once a month at least. Give them an update on your job search so that you're top of mind, because again, we're all so busy. If you meet somebody organically and it's not somebody, and you're just meeting them for the first time and they've been helpful, a month from now, they're probably going to forget about you. The job could come up and they forgot all about that John would be great for this job, right? So you need to continuously network and then come back to people, keep them updated on some type of regular basis.
I'm actually going to add on top of this. I know usually I am sort of staying over to the side, conveying the questions that are coming in. But I think that, while it's a numbers game, I would not even think about it that way, because the truth is that even though you're very focused right now on connecting with people with the purpose of that could end up being the right job for you, or something that a job comes to you, there's so many other aspects of our lives that are important. And I think that when you make an effort to connect with people, you don't know what that connection is going to lead to. And it can lead to better relationships, better friendships, richer parts of your life that in turn will end up making things change in a way that they're supposed to. So I think that, sometimes we can get really dialed in on that focus. Like, I connected with this person and it led to a call that maybe might turn out into a job. But just remember that in these relationships, it really is more than transactional, that they're relationships. And you don't know when that's going to turn into something, whether it's a job or whether it's an opportunity, in a different part of your life.
Well said, Kiki.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well said. Yes. It's all about relationships. It's a really good refocus. Really good refocus. Okay, so with that, we are about to transition here. So I'm going to share with you a couple more slides.
Sure.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
It's a good time to talk about the panel today
The panel.
at 12 noon.
Oh, yes. Please. Thanks.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to let everybody know that clearjobs.net is hosting a live recruiter panel at 12 noon today. There will be a recruiter there from Raytheon, one from Avix Aerospace, and moi. That I've looked at the questions in advance, and I think that you don't have to be in government contracting, you don't have to actually have a clearance, but you're going to get really great tips on tools and tricks and interviewing tips. And I've seen that these people have already prepared, their answers for these things. And so I think that it would be of great benefit. So Shira had asked me to put the link. It's going to be live on YouTube. I did not know that they did live on YouTube, and that they do. So I've just put the link in the chat box, so that I believe it's scheduled from 12 to 1 today. So we all can benefit from, and I always learn even from my fellow industry colleagues, do new things from what they say. And it's just, there's always something new to learn.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the resource.
Mhm.
All right, so let's go ahead and get you some contact information here. If you'd like to stay in touch with us. Oops, here we go. I'll keep this up for those of you who are new and haven't connected with us before. I'll leave this up for another couple of seconds so you can take a picture of it. Okay. And we do have, of course, a number of job support groups here in the local area. I'm sure a lot of you have availed yourself of these groups, but if you haven't yet, feel free, again, please take a picture of this. All of these groups are free. They typically have weekly meetings, with the exception of JCA, which is a once a month, and they have a $75 kind of a career gateway boot camp that they offer. All terrific groups. If you would like to subscribe to my biweekly newsletter, please email me here. For some reason, my purposefulhire.com doesn't always act friendly with with Gmail, and so if you have a Gmail account, it's very possible you're not getting it, because I've had a lot of people write me offline. And so if that is the case, and feel free to write to me and say, hey, I'm not receiving it. I've had people actually give me a different email address, and sometimes that's worked as well. All right, so I always like to end with a positive scripture quote, and this is from Psalms, and it says, "Be still and know that I am with you." So please know God is with you, God loves you, and he's there for you. So speaking of which, we do have a prayer session that follows immediately after today's meeting. So if you'd like to stick around for that, we have a really great time of hope and encouragement. All right, so we're going to go into our speed networking groups right now. We're in that room. You'll want to introduce yourself fairly briefly, explain what kind of role you're looking for. I call it your lane, right? What's the job, either the current, either whether it's been sort of in your current path or you're aspiring and you're career pivoting, and what's your community, right? What's the industry or the sector that you're looking to serve, if you have one. And then share what a great lead for you would be. And remember, we talked about don't have a Zoom coffee alone. Again, arrange those offline meetings. I know some of you have been on these calls for weeks or months now, and you feel like you know the same people. If you haven't had a Zoom coffee with them, go for it, right? What's stopping you? Like Hiki said, it's a relationship. You never know what can come out of it. You guys can be a mutual support system. So all kinds of things that can come out of meeting somebody and seeing how you can help each other meet each other's needs. So remember to keep in touch with our Power Networking spreadsheet. And with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the breakout rooms. So go ahead and just recreate them here. And we will see you back here in 10 minutes.
Hey, it's me again.
Okay,
So
I just noticed that you got bumped in with
Burn again.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and put you over here.
Shira, I've got to run. Have a great weekend. Thank you for your good work.
You're
Folks,
welcome.
all the best.
All the best to you too.
Ah, por fin. Ah,
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your networking.
I lost.
All right, we're all back now. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to see if there's any last minute thoughts, comments. So experts, you were in some of the breakout rooms. Do you want to share any takeaways or nuggets from your groups?
Well, I just want to make sure Ruth didn't get a chance to finish her sentence. So I just wanted to respond real quick and say, Ruth, I don't know if you've checked out Sunrise, Living, but they would probably have a plethora of different types of jobs that might meet what you're looking for. And once you're looking for those jobs, then Google Jobs can suggest other organizations that are also looking for similar titles. Yep, we're all just trying to figure out job titles in our group, what kinds of job titles, because obviously they change from organization to company to whatever. So
that's actually really interesting. We've never really talked about that here in this group. Maybe we should just spend 35 seconds on it. The thing with the titles is that I would focus less on the title as in director of, VP of, that kind of thing, and more the keywords, all the different kinds of keywords that could be around, right, that surround what you're talking about. So first of all, that takes some research to understand the different permutations of what employers typically call things. Classic example, those of us who are in the human resources type of world, that nomenclature changed. You got human resources, you got human capital, you got human, business, human capital business partner, you've got talent acquisition and recruiting and all of these things. Same thing in the nonprofit world, fundraising and development and philanthropy. So think about the types of, not the titles as much, but the keywords that an employer might use, embed within the title to describe the thing that you do or the thing that you want to do, and play around, right, with all of those different keywords. And then hopefully you'll start to see a pattern of what employers are currently calling. By the way, things change, things evolve. Things evolve. In fact, there are new titles that people come up with all the time, funky titles. In fact, even in HR, and I happen to like this one, some people are referring to a chief people officer,
Right.
Well, unless you're in the know, you wouldn't know that the word people is now in an HR title. Right. Or we have associations, some of us are in the association community, and now I'm seeing things like, chief strategy officer or revenue officer. And we didn't have those titles before, but in the last several years, people have shifted their mindset. And so just be thinking creatively around what somebody might be referring to the type of skill set that you have. Cool. All right. Any other thoughts from the peanut gallery before we wrap up? Okay. Good. All right, well, great seeing everyone. Remember to keep referring our Hire a Moment Mastermind to your friends and colleagues. We'd love to keep helping people. We have up to 100 slots here in this call, so feel free to keep referring folks in. And so with that, this concludes the official part of our meeting. For those of you who would like to stay on for the prayer call, you are certainly welcome. Otherwise, we will see the rest of you, hopefully, Lord willing, next week.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Great to see everyone. All right. So let's go ahead and